Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting, hair-raising, fun-filled, expeditious episode of Radiorama, where I show you how to fix, work on, and restore radios, the occasional television, stereos, basically obsolete electronics. And my range is from the 20s through about the 60s. And today we have a Zenith Consol-Tone. Of course, I forgot the model already. Model number 5-0- I can't tell what that is, 516 or 616 or something. Anyway, it's a pre-war set. I've worked on one of these before. I think they were made in 40 or 41. I actually have one of these myself because it's such a crazy, iconic design. Just a kind of taking the molding of what you can do with Bakelite to an extreme level. It's got this sort of modern-ish looking cord on it, but then it's taped to the old cord. So I'm going to give it a test to see if it actually works. And you should not do what I'm doing. You should bring it up on a variac, but I'm just going to go for broke. So do not take my advice. That's why there's a warning in the beginning of my videos. I saw a little flash of pilot light there, and I'm going to keep my hand on the knob for the likely ever popular AC hum that I'm probably going to hear because the caps are probably shot. Huh. Guidance to anyone navigating. Famous phrase. Well, I'm not going to run it more than that because who knows what's going on inside, but it still works, and that's actually not uncommon for Zenith. I just feel like their brand in general was pretty reliable, kind of like the Toyota of radio back then. So I'm going to unplug it, and we're going to take the innards out, see what, if anything, has ever been done to it. Hopefully nothing bad, like some crazy former repairman. I've seen some shit that you would not believe on these things, and it's amazing that half the houses in the United States of America didn't burn to crisp because of the crappy radio repairs I've seen. Well, I took the chassis out, and lo and behold, it's had one part replaced, believe it or not. Everything else is original. This is probably a 1950s era, maybe 60s era Cornell capacitor. This one, too, might be replaced. It's definitely 40s period, but that's kind of remarkable. You have a set that is, well, essentially, I'm not good with my math here. You know, it's over 75 years old, and it's mostly working on about 99% of its original components here. Of course, we have like all these little orange guys. These are paper caps. And somewhere in here is an electrolytic. Should be able to find the underside of it. Where is it? Oh God, it's buried. Oh, here it is. It's on this corner here. It's kind of buried underneath there. These are a challenge because this era of Zenith, they were using a type of rubber insulation that disintegrates when it gets older. I mean, this is actually still kind of flexible. That's unusual. Huh. Wow, it's actually in pretty good shape. That's going to make the job a lot easier. Usually when I work on these guys, I mean, this stuff just generally shatters. You even breathe on it, but that's not the case here. But we have approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Well, it's got a lot of caps in it. 14 paper caps. And the electrolytic probably has 2 or 3 values in it. See if I got my light over here. Of course, the sun's coming in and making everything kind of hard to see. I'm going to have to pull the model. I'm going to have to pull the schematic. I don't know what those values are because I can't see it. This is kind of curious here. We have... Oh, never mind. I thought at least maybe they've been worked on, but no, that's factory glue that locks that nut into place for these IF and RF transformers. Luckily, that's cloth-covered wire for the pilot lamp, so I don't need to worry about that. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tubes, so it's a little more sensitive, and we've got 3 gangs on the tuning condenser. Name says it's Consol-Tone. Speaker's all right. It's definitely not a console speaker, but maybe what they meant was this has pretty decent performance, you know, almost console-like performance out of a small tabletop set. Which if you were in an apartment or you didn't have a lot of room, this would be, you know, kind of a nice compromise. Well, I went inside and tried to look up the schematic for this model, and all the prints I could find are not legible. Like, everything is just kind of a smear of, like, badly copied, I don't know, not good. Here's another thing that's kind of weird here, is that I wonder, this volume pot's been replaced. That's not the original, you can tell, because that shaft is splined all the way up to the front. That one's not, so something must have happened with the volume control at some point in its life. Alright, so it's not 100% original. But I was able to at least ascertain that the electrolytic has 2 sections. And this era, we're talking like the middle of classic All-American 5 land. Those are probably 2 58 microfarad caps rated at 150 volts. Probably. So I'll replace those and it'll probably work just fine. The other thing I need to find out is where is the all-important grounding cap, meaning what is the cap that allows this to be a floating hot chassis versus a true hot chassis. One of these guys is going to go to the chassis. Now, where that is, I don't know. I wish I had a better schematic. This is annoying. I'll find it eventually, but sometimes if you don't have a schematic, you just have to do a little bit of sleuthing. It's not that hard. You just do some tracing until you find which... I think I found it here. Now you see that? That is actually the ground for that tube socket. That's going to the chassis, and this is the cap that's going to that ground. 0.07 microfarads. Well, it doesn't matter the value. That's the incorrect value and the wrong kind of cap. We need to replace that with a proper safety cap. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm looking here. This looks kind of weird too. I think that resistor was replaced. Alright, fair enough. It's had some work done to it. That's okay. But the first things first is to replace the electrolytics, which is going to be all kinds of fun because there's all this stuff in the way. And it looks like I've got some jerry-rigged goodness here. I don't know why. That's going to tone control, but I'm surely that was not from the factory. That's pretty sloppy. All right, I'm talking to myself. I will replace these 2 electrolytics and give it a test to make sure it's still working. Well, I've decided I'm going to do things a little bit backwards this time. I've actually already restored one other radio tonight, which was this guy, and you'll probably see, this will probably appear before this episode. Both of these will. But anyway, kind of done with electronics for the evening, and it's getting a little bit late, so I think I'm going to go after the cabinet, and I'm going to use the old reliable Meguiar's Cleaner Wax. It's a hard paste Caranuba. I really recommend that you do not use any cleaners if you can help it on this Bakelite. The only thing that makes it shine is the casting from the mold. And once you eliminate that casting, it's pretty damn difficult to make it shiny again. This is just a little bit dirty, but I think it should clean up and shine up quite well. Alright, so I took a first pass at the Bakelite case last night. It's already looking a lot better. Still got a lot of work to do on it, but it's a start. So now I'm going to go back to the chassis over here. And I've started the recap job, and what I'm going to do is try to replace these electrolytics there was a couple caps that were just in the way, so I relocated them so I have a clear view what's happening. Looks like we have 3 red leads going to one side and then 2 leads going to the other. I'm assuming one lead probably goes to the output transformer. Probably another lead going to the, where's that going? Well, I can't really see where it's going because it's buried. But nevertheless, we have 2 values inside this electrolytic can. And these lugs here, that's the common ground. That's kind of important. A newbie mistake that some people will make is they'll be, oh, well, you know, the chassis is ground. No, it's not. Really, the ground is here. And this is important because if you try to solder it to the chassis, not only will you make this chassis unsafe, but you'll probably sound like crap. You'll probably get a horrible humming noise. So I'm going to very carefully pull these leads off and solder them to new electrolytics, and the negatives of each electrolytic will go here. They're pretty small. I'll probably have one that goes out this way, and maybe there's very little room to stick in here. Maybe I can try to make them both fit in this general area. We'll see. Alright, so both the electrolytics are replaced. Just kind of squeezed them in there, and I'm going to give it a test to make sure it still works. I also want to make sure that the cord's good. You know, I think that exposed wiring right there, you know, maybe it's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and plug it in. And the pilot lights are on. No, I definitely need to replace that cord. That is beyond ridiculous. Seems to be a long, warmer upper. Whoa!
All your favorite new. It is unparalleled. Like-minded American.
All right. That's all I need to know. The electrolytics have been replaced successfully. I got to replace that cord. That's gnarly. But we have a whole shit ton of caps that need to be replaced here, including the aforementioned safety cap. And all these orange guys need to go. It's a kind of boring process, but what you do, generally what I do, is you'll read the value, then you clip one end of one lead, fold it backwards, and then you crimp a new one in on one side, cut the other side, crimp the other side of the other cap. In fact, maybe I'll just film that, because some people ask if I could show more details about these restorations. Alright, so I'm going to show you just how to replace one of these. I mean, everyone's going to develop their own sort of technique and style for doing things, so whatever floats your boat, really. So what I do is, like, this is a 1/10 of a microfarad capacitor, because it says that there, and I'm going to clip one end, and I'll leave the other one attached. And this eventually becomes almost like second nature. You need to kind of make sure you clip your leads to a length that is approximately the same, or if possible shorter than the original. The longer your leads are, the more possibility you could have some interference issues. So then what I do is I crimp one lead around part of the existing old lead, and then I'm using my Metcal soldering station. You really want to get it in there real good. A lot of people will make a mistake of not soldering things hot enough. You want to make it literally molten. Then I come in here and I clip a little snip off of the old existing lead to make it neater. And then I will clip the other side. I'm looking to see where this goes here. It's kind of a tight spot, but what we need to do is run it through this pair of resistors and make sure nothing touches when it runs through. And I've kind of measured the appropriate length, and that needs to go under, not over. In some ways this kind of reminds me of knitting. I don't know why. It's kind of a similar mind-numbing process. So we're going to get that as close as we can to that lead there. And we're going to solder it in. Again, like you want to have your iron as hot as you possibly can. That didn't quite stick. I'll have to hold it down physically instead. Voila, it's perfect. And now we will again come in here and fish out and cut the remains of the old original lead. There we go. There. Looks like a teeny bit of that rubber insulation came off that guy, but that's not touching anything, so that's okay. The key is you just need to make sure nothing is going to touch inside your chassis. And if you get any debris or solder or anything like that, usually I'll try to get it out. But also, when you're done with a certain part of the set, turn it upside down and shake all the stuff out of there. Well, I am about 3/4 of the way recapping this guy. I remember this was kind of a pain in the butt radio to work on. There's a lot of components in here. And since everything is so close in here, I wound up putting a lot of sleeves in my caps just to make sure nothing's going to run into each other. This is our safety cap, which is 0.01 rated, well, 0.01 UF microfarad X2Y2 across the line cap. That's essentially the other side of the AC line. We only have 2 more caps to replace. Everything in here has been buried. It's just been required just sneaking stuff in through like many different layers of wiring. This is a true rat's nest of a radio. Alright, well, the electronics is now done. I got a new cord. For some reason I found a cord that's ridiculously long, but whatever. Can't have too much cord. And it seems to be working pretty well. Of course, I haven't done anything like clean the contacts or clean the pins on the tubes or anything like that, or clean the tuning condenser. But the hard part is done. And so now with that, since it's getting late in the evening, I'm going to go over and resume polishing the Bakelite case with the aforementioned Caranuba car wax. Welcome to day 3 of working on the Zenith Consol-Tone, and last night I spent some quality time on the Bakelite. We're getting there. There's still some crap. What just fell out of there? It's one of the clips that holds the plastic front in. Oh, come on. Oh well, there it is. Okay, I have to have these things. They hold this plastic in place. Let me put it up here with the precious parts location. But yeah, I'll have to come in here and get into some of these little details. That's kind of hard to do last night because it was kind of dark. But now that I can see what I'm doing, I will proceed with cleaning this out. Just a little more detail. And like I said, the chassis is done. I'm going to add audio input later. What I might also do, in fact I am going to do, is clean. It's pretty clean actually, but I do need to clean and lubricate the tuning condenser and the volume pot, and probably these tone controls as well. Pretty good shape here so far as the project goes. Well, crap. I hate this when this happens. I was doing so well, but then the dowel cord broke. It's made out of looks like it could be cotton, so probably it's just disintegrated because it's an organic product. And I've had this happen before repeatedly on this model. And what you have to do is you take this plate off. I think it's held on with a bunch actually. I'm trying to remember how this goes. Yep, so how it comes off, I'm going to have to take these 3 screws out and these 2, and this whole thing comes off. And usually what I'll do is I'll kind of like tape this in place, so when I lift it off I don't have to like restring it. And then you restring this basically this pulley down to this this pulley here. It's not that difficult, it's just kind of a pain in the butt. Anyway, I've got plenty of line that I use. I found this at a thrift store one day. Sportsman's squidding line. I'm not sure what squidding line is. Like, do you catch squids with it? It's probably some term that has to do with fishing that I don't understand. But anyway, I'll have to take this off, move it aside, and then restring this guy. Again, annoying. Alright, so we got the dowel string successfully reattached. And if I'm careful, I can just ease this thing back on top without having to restring that. We'll see. This could be the worst part of the restring job. Usually when I think I'm doing well and I've got it in the bag is when I mess up. Alright, well, I got that back together again. That's always good for wasting an hour or two, but it seems like it's doing what it should do now. Anyway, the chassis cleaned up pretty well. It's so clean it makes me wonder if it had a lot of hours on it. But so electrically it's in great shape now. I am going to do a little more detail work on this cabinet, try to get down in some of these little nooks and crevices, maybe with some not ear cleaners. You're not supposed to use Q-tips in your ears, but I do. I just call them ear cleaners, but that's what you want to use to get in these little details. All right, welcome to day number 3 of working on the Zenith Consol-Tone, and this case is starting to look pretty good. I spent some time again last night going through all the little nooks and crannies and crevices and everything. It's a very ornate design, but it's very difficult to clean and polish. The last thing I'm going to do to this set electrically before it's reassembled is I'm going to add my oh-so-famous audio input feature. And what you want to do is, as I've always mentioned, you need to make sure that the user is isolated electrically from the chassis. And in order to do so, we're going to run the audio through an isolation transformer. And there's nothing fancy about this. All it is just we have a primary winding that is 110 volts in and 12 volts out. And so the primary is going to run through the volume pot, which is this guy here. The volume pot has 3 legs, a top, a bottom, and a center. The bottom is the ground. Top is the incoming IF signal from the radio signal. That's the positive of your audio will go in from the transformer to the top of the volume pot. And usually it's not hard to tell which one is which, because you'll look for which lead goes to first IF can. And it appears here, if we look on the top here, we have an IF can there. And this cable here attaches to this lead, which then has a brown lead that goes into that can. The other side, which is supposedly the bottom, this is strange. Usually the bottom of the pot's facing towards the bottom of the chassis, but that's not the case here. This other lead then goes off to a gang of wires that ultimately, speaking out loud, does go to ground. So here we have the grounding cap with this loop-de-loo here, and then this loop-de-loo here, and that goes there. So this is the bottom of the pot for sure. And since it's hard to get at the volume pot, I'm just going to solder the leads from the isolation transformer here. This wire here we'll have to snip and add a line so this will be switched so that the IF signal will be turned on and off. And this is a pretty crammed chassis. Oftentimes you just need to find the most convenient place to mount your isolation transformer, but not too far away from the volume pot. The longer your leads are, like if you put it way over here, it's going to run through all this wiring here and probably pick up radio signals or interference along the way. So there's a perfect spot right there. Fits perfectly right there. We'll run our leads, run our top lead to there. It's not that far. The bottom lead, obviously, to the bottom, which is up here. Not that bad. And as far as the switch wire, we can run them out of these holes. And I think we can also run the audio cable through that hole too. They're pretty skinny. And you can't just run them through. You can't just run your right and left channels from your audio cable. Can't twist the right and lefts together. You use anywhere from like a 75 to 100 ohm resistor. One resistor per each channel, and then two sides twist together and are conjoined onto the positive incoming line for the secondary channel, and then your other side is ground. I know that doesn't make any sense right now, especially if you've never watched one of my episodes, but I'll show you what it looks like when we're done here. All right, so it's installed. This is hard to film, but on the input side, for the audio cable, we have our right and left channels going through the two resistors. And then on the primary side of the transformer, we have the positive going to the top of the pot, and then the bottom is the negative. We're running the top of the pot through a resistor that's half the value of the volume pot and a 0.02 cap that will prevent this transformer, when it's out of circuit, from interfering with the set's AGC system. And we also have cut this wire here. That's the IF signal. We'll install a switch to that, but right now it seems to be working okay. That's coming off of my little Bluetooth hockey puck thingamabob. And so I'll install the switch wire, and before I close it up, I'll probably glob some hot glue on this since everything is so close. I want to make sure that if this ever comes loose, that it's not going to hit anything electrical. All right, it is done. I've spent probably more time polishing this Bakelite than I've polished a Bakelite radio in a long time. This is about, off and on, probably about 3 hours worth of work, but in the end I think it kind of made it worth it. It's not usual for Bakelite to have such a nice casting left over, so clearly no one ever cleaned it. So anyway, I've got my Bluetooth running through it now. And then if you decide you don't want to listen to Bluetooth, you just turn it around and flip this little switch.
A neighboring state armed with an Paul and Dr. Anthony Fauci. For what you're all
Sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo.
Anyway, it's working pretty well. It's actually such a nice evening. My parents are actually visiting because I have a nephew. I am now an uncle for the first time, and I might just take this over there and we'll have it playing in the backyard. That might be real nice. But we are going to auction this, and if any of you guys are watching know what I'm talking about, look for this soon. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching, and as always, if you like what you see, or if you learned a thing or two, or maybe you just want to say howdy, leave your comments down below and press that like button. And until the next time that radios come across my bench, which is literally probably instantaneously because I'm going on a tear these days, then you'll see some of these soon. All right, see you next time. Bye-bye.